clocks in Bucharest ticked quietly, almost apologetically, as Nicolae Ceaușescu stood high above the city, the dictator in his palace of marble and paranoia. Outside, the streets were cold, bitter with December frost, and filled with a silence that only regimes can command. But silence can rot. And in the winter of 1989, Romania was already cracking. For decades, Ceaușescu had ruled with iron precision and divine arrogance. His image was not simply feared, it was worshipped. His portrait hung in classrooms, factories, hospitals. Children were taught to sing his name before they knew their own. He was the genius of the Carpathians, the Danube of thought. And yet, behind the slogans, there was hunger, there was fear, there was darkness that crept beneath the surface of smiling propaganda. In the countryside, families burned books for warmth. In the cities, the lights flickered with rationed electricity, meat, butter, milk, luxuries for the few. And still, the regime insisted all was well. Alina Ceaușescu, his wife and second-in-command, declared Romania a model for the world. But the world was not watching with admiration. It was holding its breath. Then came the spark. A small protest in the western city of Timișoara, a pastor removed from his home, ignited something no one could control. People poured into the streets. At first, whispers, then chants, then shots. Blood stained the cobblestones. And yet, the people did not scatter. They stayed. They shouted. They rose. News traveled fast. Ceaușescu, believing himself invincible, dismissed the unrest as foreign sabotage. He ordered a mass rally in Bucharest, a show of force to drown out dissent. The cameras were ready. The chants had been rehearsed. But when he stepped onto the balcony of the Central Committee building, the crowd did not cheer. They booed, they jeered, and in that moment, the spell shattered. The dictator froze. His voice faltered. Confusion rippled through his security. The live broadcast cut to a patriotic anthem, but the truth was already in motion. The revolution had arrived at his doorstep, and it would not be turned away. In panic, Nicolae and Elena fled by helicopter, skimming the rooftops of a city unraveling. But there was nowhere to go. The army, once loyal, had turned. Soldiers refused orders. Some joined the protesters. Others simply vanished. Ceaușescu, once the face of unshakable power, was now a fugitive, old, bewildered, hunted. They were captured near a village, disoriented and clutching suitcases of state secrets. Driven to a military garrison in Targovect, they were confined in a bare room, watched by guards who had once sworn to protect them. Now, they waited. And then, on Christmas Day, December 25, 1989, came the verdict. A military tribunal was summoned in haste. It was not a trial in the conventional sense. It was theater revenge painted as justice. The charges were vast: genocide, subversion, economic sabotage. The Ceaușescus scoffed, refused to recognize the court, demanded their lawyer, demanded respect. But the moment for pleading had passed. The sentence was death. They were led into a walled courtyard. Snow fell faintly in the distance, melting against the cold concrete. Soldiers tied their hands behind their backs. Nicolae began to sing, the anthem of international communism, his voice shaking, defiant, out of tune. Alina cursed the soldiers. "Don't separate us," she screamed. "We raised you like children." The firing squad was already in place. 7 rifles, 10 seconds. The order was given. The shots rang out across the courtyard like thunder ripping through the stillness. Their bodies jerked and crumpled into the frozen dirt, riddled with bullets, lifeless, silenced. The tyrants of Romania lay dead, not in glory, but in ruin. The final image, a man who believed himself a god, sprawled in the snow like any other mortal. Their execution was filmed. Hours later, it was broadcast across Romania. The people watched in stunned silence. Some cheered, others wept. All understood that an era had ended, but the ending was not clean. Over 1,000 lives had been lost during the revolution, shot in the streets, crushed by tanks, disappeared by the chaos. And now, with Ceaușescu gone, a vacuum remained. Who would lead? Who would rebuild? The communists had fallen, but the ghosts remained in government, in law, in memory. The scars were deep. Ceaușescu had spent decades draining the nation to pay off foreign debt. Whole villages were destroyed in his program of systematization. Churches were razed. Thousands of orphans filled decrepit institutions, neglected, starved. He dreamed of a new society, perfect and obedient. But what he created was a prison with no bars, just walls of fear and hunger. And yet, he believed in it. To the bitter end, he believed. That was the tragedy. The dictator did not see himself as evil. He saw himself as chosen. That blind conviction, that fatal pride, became his undoing. Power had been his oxygen. He breathed it for too long. In the echo chamber of the palace, no voice contradicted him. Alina, his equal in ambition, was praised as a scientist, a scholar, a mother of the nation. But her degrees were false, her research fabricated, her cruelty well known behind closed doors. Together, they formed a dynasty of delusion, and like all empires built on lies, theirs could not withstand the truth. The world changed that year. Berlin's wall fell. Soviet statues cracked, but Romania's fall was the bloodiest. No smooth transition, no quiet handover, just fire, bullets, and betrayal. In the weeks that followed, Romania abolished the death penalty. Ceaușescu and Elena would be the last to face such an end. Their graves were unmarked, their legacy poisoned. Statues were torn down, streets renamed. Their names became warnings, not honors. Still, the wounds took time to heal. Factories stood abandoned, rusting reminders of planned economy failures. Families whispered stories of ration lines, informants, disappearances. And in the parliament, once his palace, new voices echoed, but the marble still smelled of old power. The past does not vanish, it lingers, it haunts. And Ceaușescu's shadow, though broken, never fully disappeared. Today, some remember him with bitterness, others with nostalgia. In the uncertainty that followed his fall, many struggled. The promised freedom brought markets, but also chaos. Democracy arrived, but slowly, painfully. And so the myth, the terrible myth, was born again in fragments. But myths cannot erase what happened on that courtyard wall. The tyrant who built a personality cult died not in ceremony, but in fear. On Christmas Day, a holiday of peace, a nation watched judgment unfold. The irony is sharp, almost biblical. There are lessons here, etched into Romania's soil, that power, unchecked, consumes even those who wield it. That fear, when multiplied, becomes flammable. That belief, without conscience, leads to ruin, and that no throne, no title, no myth can stand forever against the will of a people who refuse to kneel. In the silence after the shots, there is more than relief. There is grief, for the lives lost, for the years stolen, for the children who grew up never knowing anything but slogans, now staring into a future with no clear path. But in that same silence, there is also hope, raw, unsure, but real. The snow falls, the flags change, the people begin again, and the wall where Nicolae Ceaușescu fell, it still stands, marked, remembered, a scar and a symbol, a warning that tyranny ends not with parades, but with reckoning. The story of Ceaușescu is not just about Romania. It is about every leader who forgets they serve, not rule. It is about every citizen who learns that fear is not destiny. It is about time and how it catches up, always, in the end. Until next time, stay safe, and see you in the next history.